Welcome to the Shoe Geeks episode from maybe back in February. We probably meant to meet up. Now it's March, but I'm sorry we haven't got more Shoe Geeks episodes this year in 2022, but it's been really hard to get my two co-hosts together with me at the same time. So joined by Julian, owner of the running company Ballarat and Geelong now. And what else do you own, Julian?
I own a new paddleboard. I've got a wetsuit, and they're getting lots of use right now.
I'd say Tom might agree with this. We were pretty tough to get hold of to get these Shoe Geeks going off, but Julian is far and beyond the hardest person to get hold of now, owning another business. How are you going over there, Tom? New house owner? May I say congratulations?
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, busy as we all are, but yeah, it's good we could find a time for this.
So stuck in Sydney for life. Bad luck.
Yeah, well, it'll be at least 10 years. It's
at least 10 years.
Sydney life's good. I know you guys just have a bit of an issue with Sydney, probably because I don't know, chip on your shoulder or something. But life's pretty good here.
We just had a little conversation before you got on, actually, about Sydney. Nitta loves it. Actually, Nitta loves it, especially the.
I was really surprised the mask. There's no mask mandate there. Coming from South Australia, it's still present. But there is a mask mandate in the New South Wales airport, but there was no one enforcing it. More than 2/3 of people in the airport weren't wearing the mask. So it's pretty tough to enforce that.
I can see you putting a complaint in.
I'm just here I can just whinge about it on this platform. That's all I can do. So
chew out the air hostess. She got nothing to do with it, but just go and just chew her ear off at the counter.
Yeah. No. Actually, to be honest, Tom, I know why you like pavement now. We stayed in Enfield, which is just down near Olympic Park on the weekend, and it's just pavement. There is no dirt. The best place we found to run on, like I said, was a cemetery. So, which is Sydney's a terrible place to run. Sorry, unless you're near Centennial Park, it's just terrible. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a big city, right? You can't expect too much dirt.
Well, Melbourne does it pretty good, Tom.
We used to have this place, the Bay in Drummoyne, and it was a 7K loop. I still do it. The whole thing used to be that red gravel. It was really nice. And then over the years, the whole thing's paved. The whole thing's like cycleway and footpath now. But it used to.
We see that here in Adelaide now as well. Our South Park lands were like historically all dirt trails, and they still are. But you can just see a little bit more bitumen arrive every single year when there's, I don't know, like a local commuter complaining that there's a bit of dirt they got to ride their bike on to the city or something like that. And eventually they just put it on the list and pave it over time. So,
yeah.
But Tom, you're back running. You're back getting some stuff done.
Yeah. I dialed it back a bit this week. I got probably a little bit excited. So I was about 9 weeks in the boot, came out a couple of, maybe 3 weeks ago. And, it's okay. Just the foot's stiff. My plantar fascia has been a little bit sore, and the whole foot just feeling stiff. So I've just this week gone back to just cross training. So just elliptical and some gyms and weights and stuff. And maybe next week I'll get back to a bit more running. But I'm in no rush. So
how's the top of your foot feeling? Where the Met is? All right.
Fine, totally fine. Like there's no tenderness over the bone whatsoever. So I'm pretty confident the bone's all healed. It's actually the soft tissues that are just super sensitive at the moment.
And that little collateral ligament that evolved, is that sore at all?
Big toe sore. Like the joint in general is a little bit stiff and a little bit achy. So I think and I said to you the other day, it's almost like a bunion's forming now. So it's not ideal, but it'll take a bit of time for that joint to get used to functioning, probably, and it maybe
you're
gonna ankle change.
You're gonna move to ultra when you're a bunion forms?
Definitely not. Zero drop, mate. You know I can't do that.
Yeah, true. Very true.
But after coming out of the boot for so long, did you have like heaps of calf wastage and everything? Just because
I wouldn't say heaps of calf wastage. I would say after the first 3 weeks, it was terrible wastage because I was on crutches for 2 weeks. So I didn't actually wait there for the first 2 weeks. And so like it was for sure. Like as those 2 weeks progressed, the boot had to get tighter and tighter and tighter to the point where it was almost like not enough Velcro. Like Yeah, so that was depressing. But then I had, walking in the boot, it kind of rebuilt a little bit, just being able to like weight there again. And then I think after 5 weeks, I started doing some double leg calf raises every second day, and kind of just built up from there. So yeah, by 9 weeks,
you moved into a shoe, didn't you?
It wasn't too terrible.
You moved into a shoe not long after 5 weeks, didn't you? Or we stay in the boot?
I did a bit of a hybrid. Probably after about 6 weeks, I was boot for if I knew I was going to be doing a bit of walking. I was in the boot. Otherwise, short walks. I was in I was wearing that, like I was saying, the old Carbon X with an orthotic inside. So that was the setup.
Have you heard the story? Tom was at a bottle picking up a bottle of wine, and Gary walked past and saw this tall guy with size 13 Hokers, his coach, and said, I know that guy.
Literally caught red-handed with this bottle of wine. I was like, he wasn't. I don't think he was too impressed.
Nah, that's it. So what? I mean, you got back into a little bit of running. Were you literally just jogging in Hokers, or did you try something else when you came back? And
so I was in the Kawana. Like I know you've done a lot in that one. So the Hoka Kawana, and I got a pair of the Nike Zoom Fly 4, I think they are. Yeah, the 4s. I haven't worn the Zoom Fly since I think the 2s. Is that the Flyknit upper? Yeah,
it was. It was the bottom heavy one.
Yeah, so I didn't really like these ones feel a lot better than the 2s. So using that and the Kawana predominantly. Nice. I did do like 2 runs in the new Vomero as well.
Of course, the Vomero, you mentioned that. So what do you think of the Kawana now?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I haven't done enough in it, so I know you're saying it softens up. So for me, it still feels like quite a firm ride. So it's pretty firm. It's a lot firmer than what I'm used to. So, but for where I'm at now, like I don't mind the firmness. I did sort of do a short jog, like a 1K jog in the Invincible on one of these little mini runs, and it felt terrible. It was just way too unstable. So at least the Kawana, although it's not super soft, it's stable. So for my purposes, it felt pretty good. Yeah.
And Julian, over there in Anglesey, got back to some good running volume and back having a bit of a rest with the same knees flaring up. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, didn't do a lot. I mean, since we talked last, I had 2 weeks of running.
Yep.
But I only wore the same shoes. And then before my knee flared up, I started running in this one, which is the Saucony Triumph 19.
Yeah, nice.
I've been a massive Triumph fan for a long time. Since the Triumph ISO 3, which is one of my all-time favorite shoes. It was the first sort of cushioned shoe with a lower drop, but a decent chunk of cushion that I started running in. And it just seemed to be the perfect shoe for me. I went through tons of them. And this is the newest version that they've got out now. They've gone. I found when they went away, they went to this power run for a while, and it felt a bit dead to me. A few older versions, but this new power run PB. No, sorry, this is power run plus. They've worked out. Like I've got enough cushion in this. It's not that heavy either, and I only got 2 runs in it. It just felt really smooth underfoot.
Is it pretty stable?
What's the difference between the plus and the PB, the power run?
No, the PB's the P-back stuff. The real,
so that's not P-backs.
No, it's not. No, this is TPU. So this is like an Adidas Boost type foam, but it's a lot lighter than that, and it's sort of more of it's obviously a running shoe. It's pretty flexible. So it has this cutout you can sort of see just on the medial side in the arch area. I don't know what that's for, to be honest, but it makes it quite a lot more flexible through there, which isn't something that I'd normally really like in a shoe. But so far, it did make it feel really quite smooth.
So does it still have that that slither of power run beneath the sock liner?
Yeah,
so
it does.
It does.
Yeah. And that's a nice first feel, isn't it? That sort of soft.
I'm assuming
plushy
that's
feel.
why they keep it in now, because the rest of the midsole is meant to be very similar, isn't it? So I'm assuming it's just
I don't
adding.
think it's much different. Yeah.
I've been, Mike, I've been trying to source some of the sheets of the TPU to layer with my orthotics. I'm getting closer.
You're just creating a better first feel.
Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense to me, to be honest. But it is a good first feel. Like I've put that Power Run PB sock liner into other brands of shoes just because it makes it feel a bit better. So.
And it's more resilient, isn't it, the TPU than an EVA? So that's
absolutely.
That's probably one thing about this shoe. A lot of guys come in, do a lot of mileage, chew through shoes. This is really durable. Like when say we see people come in that are updating 600 Ks, a lot of them can go 800 plus in this shoe.
Yep.
That foam is remarkably durable, and the outer sole they use, it's called XT 900 or something. But it's really strong outer sole as well. So it's a super workhorse, but it's not like a heavy brick-like shoe.
Yep.
So with all the recent trends, and we see shoes like the Kiwana, the Clifton, Nimbus Light, Invincible, even Vomero, they're not very resilient foams in that they're not very durable. They compress quickly. So it's nice to have something on the market that if someone comes in and durability is a big priority for them, then this is a shoe that we can say it will last longer.
Are we seeing that sort of same foam in the models below, like the Ride and the Guide as well, or?
Not really. No, they're still firmer. They're still more. I don't know. Like I get so over all the names the brands are calling their foams. I look at the foam as for what it is, and they're firmer, more like EVA feeling foams, whereas this one feels quite a lot different. This is in the Hurricane. The Hurricane's got a big plastic post on the medial side. I don't like that shoe as much. The Triumph feels like they've gone for a certain type of shoe and they've nailed it. The Guide's nice for someone who wants firmness underfoot. It's a stiffer shoe. It's like an 8mm drop. It's got a plastic. It's got like a plastic post, so it is a support shoe. And it suits that runner that wants something firm underfoot. But this is different.
Is it easy to retail and sell the Triumph? Because I mean, you probably put it on the line next to what a Glycerin and what a Nimbus, and quite high stack comparatively to those two, isn't it? Well, actually, no, Glycerin's relatively high, isn't it? Yeah,
it's not high stack. It's just to me feels a little bit more smooth, natural than a Glycerin or than a Nimbus. Now I compare this to the 1080. So the Triumph used to be a real 1080 competitor, and it's still like geometry wise, it's a less shoe than what the 1080 is now. The new version, we'll talk about that in the future, but it's more. I call it athletic, agile, slim underfoot, whereas the 1080 has a much broader footprint and is a more solid feeling shoe. So we do really well with this. It's sort of in between. I call it like when I have a customer who's halfway in between wanting a safe shoe like a Brooks Ghost or a Glycerin maybe. Like a Glycerin's not that poppy or soft. And then they've also got shoes out like Nimbus Light or Invincible, or even 1080. Like to me, this feels it sort of sits in the middle somewhere.
When does the Glycerin 20 come out with a new foam?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be out very shortly, but because of the delays, like we're seeing still big delays. It's looking like it's going to be mid-year.
Got it.
That'll be good because it will really polarize the Ghost and the Glycerin.
And that needs to be done because it's currently too similar, isn't it? And the Ghost is such a flagship shoe in terms of just being, I guess, one of the least complained about shoes, you'd say, Julian, the Ghost, and that's why it sells well, right? So, whereas Glycerin, hopefully, this new foam brings a bit more fun.
It will be, and it will still, like the Glycerin's been stable for a long time, even though it is a bit more cushioned. So it'll be a very different customer, I think, to what the current Glycerin is. We've only seen it once. That was now probably 12 months ago. Oh, I can't remember when that. No, it was probably 6 months ago. I saw it once, and then haven't seen it again. So it's hard. You kind of forget what it's like a little.
Going back to the durability, based off the Aurora, it hopefully as well will be quite a durable update.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Like, that's something you could probably tell me because you.
Well, the Aurora, I was at 700 Ks before I lost one of the shoes. I left them at the track, I reckon, and the shoe felt the same.
Really?
Yeah.
It was really durable.
Yeah.
Right. That's good. Good to know. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's all. That's all from me.
Well, I've just got a quick question, Julian, because we sort of touched on this way back when your knee popped up. You had a few knee issues historically as well. You came back in? You're wearing, traditionally a few more fun high stack shoes. Did you ever try anything different, like try and put a bit less shoe beneath your foot when you were running to maybe offload your knee at any times or any runs?
Yeah, I wore the Aurora, funnily enough.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
the Aurora is still a fair bit of shoe.
It is. But to me, the flexibility, I felt like I was landing on I felt like it changed my gait more than other shoes did. And that's that's like the main factor, isn't it? It's not
trying to hit the forefoot a bit more and try and, not sit back on the heel as much.
Yeah. And to a degree, Triumph being 8 mil and more flexible, and when I run in the shoe, I can put a 4 mil drop shoe on like a Bondi and feel like it's too forgiving, and I slow my cadence down and I run poorly in it. So for me, it's more about how the shoe feels. But the endorphin shift, I went back to that a bit because that's 4 mil offset, and I felt like it was really natural for me. Like when I was running, nothing was interfering with my natural gait. So I went back to that shoe. I didn't notice much difference, although I walked. So I had the Nimbus 24 on, and I went for a walk, and I felt like immediately my knee was sort of sorer than what I was when I was walking barefoot. And that shoe has like a high stack, very soft, very cushioned, high heel offset. And I thought, okay, maybe I should be walking in like something a bit firmer, a bit more minimal.
So I mean, remember you
Vivo barefoots, man.
Vivo barefoots, yeah.
Well, here we go.
Remember when you blamed us when you had knee pain a couple of years ago? Me and Tommy told you to get into a pair of Streaks for a couple of your workouts, and your plantar fascia flared, and you just whinged that was our fault.
Oh yeah, you guys think the shoes fix everything.
Yeah, well, you're trying to get a bit more plantar fascia loading, to be honest, so you can get rid of your knee load just a touch, aren't you? Just for an interim period.
What did I wear that day? I wore the I wore like the New Balance Prism. You told me because I had OP, and you said, "Oh, wear less shoe." And so I
don't think the Prism's less shoe, is it?
Well, I wore some shoe. I can't remember what it was, but then I got bad plantar issues, and I'm like, "Why am I? What? These shoes aren't the shoe. The shoe's not getting rid of my bloody broken hip." Anyway,
well, there's an interesting note that when you can put a shoe on that you can feel how it changes your gait quite well. I mean, that's an experienced runner. Like, we normally have to prescribe shoes to try and offload knees that are quite minimal or less pitch to them. But, there are shoes that may have a bit more pitch, like you said, the Triumph, but just the geometry of the shoe changes your gait enough, and you can just you can perceive that change, whereas most people who aren't experienced probably can't quite, or maybe they're not even influenced by the shoe that much because their gait's pretty, they can't separate a shoe feel. So that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
People with knee stuff, what were you going to say?
Oh, just in store, it's for me getting away from the actual specs and the names of foams and all this, and just bringing it back to a bit more feel-based, like decision making. That, like, to me, it's still intuition that's the best determiner in a shoe.
And people probably don't know you've gone back into shop and also selling the shoe as well. And do you think that's a bit because of trying to teach your staff to be a bit more intuitive and as opposed to just a particular paradigm of selling a shoe? And
well, yeah, it just comes down, like, to me, experience. So over the course of my time doing what I do, I might have put 10,000 shoes on different people, and I might have seen sort of 5,000 different feet. And how those feet have gone in different shoes, and the feedback I'm hearing, it's pure just exposure to different shoes and different problems. So it's not like a knowledge thing because I'm I don't know, but it's more experience based, right? Stuff. So I can be in and hear things and go, oh, I've heard that before. Like this is what I'm going to try.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So you're searching what the customer wants, the attribute, and you're trying to. The shoe wall's so big now. You need to know how these shoes react. Like if you were selling shoes in the 1970s, you're looking at low stack EVAs, the same firmness. That people are picking by brand and by width of the shoe, whereas now you're picking by feel, noise, perception, feedback. You're solving a puzzle, and it's because there's no paradigm. A person that's more experienced probably is in the best position to actually sell a shoe.
And you're having a customer make a decision on what philosophy they want to follow with their shoe choice. So that's the other bit. You almost have to educate them on the different philosophies that they have at their disposal to select a shoe. And then, so for instance, it's like, do you want to try a more innovative concept in shoes? Like when they come in, they might have plantar fasciitis, and we go, okay, well, here's a model that might help. This is maximalism. This is rocker stiffness. But traditionally speaking, we've tried traditional shoes where we have a higher pitch, a firmer foam. You pronate more. So maybe like in the past, we've thought that having a higher degree of pronation might exacerbate the issue. So let's look at a support shoe. So the tricky bit is sort of reading the customer and seeing which philosophy will apply, but also at the same time giving them an option to decide themselves. And it's hard training staff the last month, a lot more difficult because there are no categories that shoes sit into, and one shoe might flow across 3 or 4 categories. So it's not like look at a list, compare the shoes that are in the same list. It's a lot different to that.
What do you reckon, Tommy? Get this guy up into a podiatry conference, put him on the stage, and just tell him to
make it happen.
Go your hardest.
Yeah, we got to make it happen.
We do. We do need to make this happen. So, no, it's good, Julian. That's what people sort of need to hear, and as opposed to traditionally, like you said, pronation-based models or impact models. You need to solve the puzzle with what the patient sort of is going to head towards anyway, don't you? Just try and use what they think they need and try and get them in. They need to have buy-in, don't they? You need to.
It's got to be. It comes down to trust. Yeah. So they I can have someone memorize the things I've told them, but if they go out there and they're not they don't have a sense of confidence about them, then the customer won't be confident, and they might bring the perfect shoe out, but the customer might not be confident in that, and then that they'll come back in 2 days and going, I've noticed this slight knee niggle, and I think it's the shoes, and it's not the shoes, but in their head, they weren't confident they were getting the right shoe. So of course the shoe will top the blame.
Cool. Very good. I've probably been doing the most running out of you guys, which is just really, really sad for you guys. But the shoe
we're happy for you. We're happy for you.
It's good. This is the shoe I've definitely worn the most, and it's the Kawana. We talked about it last time, but now it's about maybe 350, maybe 400 Ks in. And granted, it is firm. It still is firmer, 400 Ks in, compared to any other Hoka that I have worn ever. And it softened up a little bit after maybe 80 or 90 Ks, which must be harder to sell at a retail point. Walking into a shop and putting on a firmer shoe now. I mean, I can imagine if you put a Clifton on one foot and a Kawana on the other, 9 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 consumers will probably pick the Clifton, I'd say, just on first feel. This is definitely a snappier shoe. I run a bit quicker in it. It is heavier. The midsole's firmer. 300 Ks on. Whether I've just changed what I'm searching for in a shoe, I prefer the firmness. I think the Clifton, when I got to 300 Ks, felt like it was done, especially in the forefoot for me. The midsole just didn't return. It felt like it was pretty hollow. And I reckon the last Clifton I might have been back in the 4th or 5th model. You definitely got more out of the Clifton back then than you do now. So while it's a fun shoe, the Clifton, I'm preferring the Kawana, but it isn't for everyone. So I've still whacked a traditional heel pitch in the shoe just purely on the basis it has this rear foot rocker, which Tom put on the cheese platter last time. And but yeah, it probably has good attributes to offload an anterior knee and shin, as he said, but I put a heel pitch in just to try and deload my Achilles a bit. So So one thing I found, I got a bit of an osteophyte, like a bit of a lip on the front of my ankle. So when I put a really low pitch shoe on and climb some hills, in my backyard's mainly hills now, I do get a bit of a pinch at the front of the ankle, and this shoe probably did maybe highlight that a little bit. So I transitioned into a slightly higher pitch shoe, and I actually wore the Nimbus 24. So you guys have that in stock at the moment. And I got maybe 30 or 40 Ks into it, and it's the softest iteration of the Nimbus. It has to be. And the forefoot, I was bottoming out substantially. I could feel the outsole segmentation so much more because the midsole is so, well, it's not low stack. It's, it's pretty high stack actually. It just compresses so quickly. And one of my juniors came out to training, and he forgot his shoes. He's a size 10, so I lent it to him for the warm up because I had the Nimbus there, and I happily said to him after, I said, "You can keep this shoe." So it's I don't know, like I don't know who it's going to work for. Julian, you might have a bit more of an outline. Like I've seen a lot of Nimbus on the street already since it's been released. It's marketed pretty well. Maybe it just if you hit the heel a bit more, it is very, very soft. And since then, I've got the Cumulus, and Tom, you've got the Cumulus as well. And they put like a slightly lower durometer foam on the top. I actually don't have it in front of me. I'm not sure if you got it near you, Tom. The Cumulus?
No, I don't.
Nah. So they put a softer durometer foam, like, closer to the sock liner, right? But beneath that, the second layer is actually a denser foam. So it feels soft when you put it on your foot, but it does feel a bit denser. It doesn't feel like it's bottoming out when I'm going for a run in it. So I prefer the Cumulus, maybe because I'm just impacting a bit higher than the Nimbus. So that's interesting, I think. And there's a small shank that lives in the medial aspect of the Nimbus as well, but you don't really notice that either. So the surface area is probably not quite wide enough to make it stable either. So yeah, it's an interesting shoe compared to what it historically was. And
someone came in yesterday with her. She had a new pair of the 24s, and she had her old pair, which were the 21s.
Yeah, got it.
Very different. Yeah, so I saw them both yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, wow, yeah. It's changed substantially.
I mean, it's always probably been relatively soft in the heel, I'd say, the Nimbus. It's always been like that for models that go back close to a decade, but the forefoot is just really soft. The foam they use there is very different. So whether I'm not enjoying the soft shoe, I sort of preferred the Cumulus over the Nimbus. And the only other shoe that I've worn recently in the past week since I've arrived, I'd shout out to Luke Bell from On. Now, I'm not sure Julian's going to like this too much, but this is the Cloud Stratus. This is an On shoe. Anyone who's listened to the Coffee Club podcast know that these have become a bit more popular by the group over in Colorado, Boulder. And these are firm. So I'm going to be completely honest. These are a firm, but they're a relatively stable shoe. I wore an On shoe just in the shop maybe 2 years ago when they first came out. Might have been like the Cloud Flow, I reckon. So like a less stacked shoe. And the segmentation of the shoe was really dramatic. Like the segments are really, really well defined, and I could feel them individually. And that was tough to wear. Like I didn't enjoy that at all. So I think the concept of the On shoe historically, like the developer was looking at trying to treat his own knee pain by impact loads, and they use like they cut a hose up into little segments.
Done some research.
No, we had the rep come and speak to me and Clarkie the other week. Lucy,
I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, so maybe that's why we're here talking them up a little bit. She was so good at the job. She sold the shoe concept to me, but the Stratus is different to the other ones. In fact, that you don't feel the segmentations. Like any other shoe, it's not that deep. It's only 3 or 4 mils deep. The EVA midsole is still firm. These guys, the little pods are meant to try and shear a bit when you hit the ground to try and deload shearing loads. I think that's a bit of a stretch to some extent.
What does shearing loads mean?
So for example, you hit the ground, and rather than sort of it just compressing, it can translate a little bit side to side. So it should be able to reduce a bit of shear.
Do you remember the Adidas shoes that used to have that segmented heel and the lateral aspect, and it was for that same reason, to reduce the shearing force?
Exactly what Clarkie brought up. Remember the Supernova that came out with that shearing load pod, the rear foot pod? Absolutely, yeah. That's the only time I've sort of thought of a shoe trying to reduce shear by using this sort of pod that could translate in different planes. Yeah, but this is the concept, and obviously they're a Swiss brand, and Mr. Federer put in a lot of cash investment through there, and But it's a very stable neutral shoe. Like I find this to be stable. The surface area is quite wide here. It's not as wide in the midfoot, so it wouldn't be as stable for a rear foot striker. But because the foam is firm, it is relatively stable. So once again, I guess the whole idea of this shoe is to, if you like a firmer shoe, you probably will enjoy this. And that's pretty rare. I've got the Kawana going and the Stratus going, and the Mizuno Wave Sky going at the moment as my 3 major rotation. They're all pretty firm, and every now and then I'll put a Clifton or a Nova Blast on at the moment.
Or occasionally get really excited and wear a Rebel and post about it on your Strava.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I guess once again, that Rebel is one of those shoes. When you pull it out once every 2 months, you enjoy it, but if you wear it in back-to-back days, the shoe is.
I reckon you might like the Vomero for the fact that it's actually this will be the softest in your rotation, but it's still got the Zoom Air pod in the forefoot, so maybe you won't bottom it out because it's got the air unit.
It's Tom, when the Vomero had the 12th and the 13th version, still to date with that Lunaron midsole, is the best volume shoe that I've worn, full stop, bar none. And I'll say that over and over and over. And I think when we had Jack Rayner on here, he said the same thing. That was his favorite night too. Then when it's to the 14, the disappointment of the 14 and even the 15, I just haven't gone back to them yet. And, part of the marketing for the Vomero 16 and 17 when it comes out should have been, this is not the 14 anymore. This is, should be half the marketing because it did ruin that line of shoe substantially. And I'm sure they know that. I'm sure they've been given that feedback over and over and over. And I know we're talking about this one next month as well, but this is what I'm going to be trying to wear in the next month or so. It's going to be the new 880. You'll see it around the stock once again. It's got a bit of a bum, Julian. Looks nice. Like it's attractive.
Got a bit more. It needed a little bit more footprint back there.
Did, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got a bit of a bum. People like bums. So that's good. And I mean, it looks nice. And yeah, so I'm looking, you've got yours, Tom, as well. You'll probably try and do something.
No, I haven't got mine yet.
Oh, well, ouch.
And now you're not running enough.
That's true.
Maybe.
And in a couple of weeks' time, Julian, if my body holds up and I don't retire between now and then, I'm going to wear this in the Herb. What are you going to wear in the Herb?
Me? I'll be on the sidelines. I'll be wearing a pair of cool-looking Nike Peg Trails or something.
I'll just in Sydney on the weekend watching the national champs, like mainly the distance events as well. It's pretty much a Victory or a Dragon now. That's 95% of the field, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, what else? To compete, you have the New Balance shoes not out yet, and there are some Hoka shoes, but they're over $300 for their Spike, and I don't think they're too much more magic than what you like. Or well, they're not more magic than those. No. Adidas, they didn't bring them in the country. And yeah, so you're right.
There's an opportunity. It's a Nike commercial when you go to those championships. It's there's got to be an opportunity. I mean, obviously the market's not big enough globally to really focus on it by any means, but surely some other company can pop in, drop a large line of super spikes, high stack foam spikes within the limit, and have some success with it. Surely.
Oh, I mean, so when we were dealing with Adidas, I remember I looked at the available options that could come in the country, and I picked out the Spike, and I said, "Oh, this one, you need this in the country." And
is that the Ambition, or
is it the Avanti?
The Avanti.
Yeah, and the feedback was we already have too many running shoes in our line. This is we can't add another. And I said, get rid of another one then and bring this in.
Yeah.
That's not happening. I thought, you guys don't get it. You're not runners. You're not feeling the community.
Their running line here is tiny anyway, the amount of models they've got here. It's not like they've got many.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, that's probably a reflection of how in tune they are, I reckon, with the running community.
So get this, Lana bought a pair of Supernovas the other day. You know how Lana's an Adidas girl?
Yep.
She went for one run in them and she just came back saying, she actually said she did not enjoy the run.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's just completely
Did you say
transition to wanting and enjoying a lot of foam? So the Boston is what she's done like all her mileage in since she got it December last year. And going to traditional shoes, she's not happy.
Wow, what does Gary think of that?
No, I haven't brought it up with Gary. He wouldn't like that.
Nah. Well, I mean, it is interesting.
We were just chatting the other day about one of the reasons we get shoes is just for the enjoyment factor, make the experience of running more enjoyable. And she came back and she literally said, "I did not enjoy that run."
Yep. Well, mate, this is a big thing now. Like I was running the national park and I saw a guy and he would have been 115, 20 kilos. He had, Salomon backpack with the little tube around. You can sort of just get access to water. And he was jogging in a pair of Vaporflies, the Eckerton color ones. And he had all the gear. And I had to stop him. I said, "Oh, how you find the shoes?" He goes, "Mate, I wouldn't be running without these shoes. They're so much fun." And I mean, the cost of a $300 shoe versus the cost of a triple bypass, this guy's doing the right thing. So if a shoe can get someone out, who cares what it is? Like at the end of the day, you're getting someone running who's not running often. There is merit in that. And I don't know if there's a population for that, but people probably do need to start talking about how some of these high stack shoes are making running feel very different to what they experienced a decade or so ago. And there's a lot to say in that.
Yeah. Next day, shin pain, stressy, no running for 6 months, hates the shoe.
Nah, no way. You don't get shin pain from Vaporfly, mate. Especially when you're running with like a Salomon backpack.
Are you kidding?
You don't get shin pain from that shoe. No way. You get shin pain from running too much, right? Now, if this guy runs too much, that's another problem, mate. He's got to get that sorted out, but it's not the shoe's fault.
But the tib post under 115 kilos on a platform that's about 3 centimeters wide, out in the bush with obviously pretty shuffled stride. You're saying that tib post isn't going to get loaded to the shithouse? Maybe
his carbs are really strong, Julian. Maybe they can handle it. Maybe he's an Olympic calf lifter, mate. Maybe he's fine.
Yeah, maybe that shoe will be in the bin in 10 days. 10 days, that back platform will be cooked.
No. He'll come back to you and he'll be like, "I need a more stable shoe," and you'll sell him the Alpha Fly.
Alpha Fly, baby.
Yeah, I think the Alpha Fly is the one for
you. All right, I got a listener question then.
All right, fire away.
Listener question goes to the podiatrist on the show. So it comes in from Simon. Now, Simon asks, "I went to the podiatrist the other day. He recommended that I get orthotics. The orthotics cost $500. How do I know when a podiatrist is selling me something to make money versus whether the device will actually benefit me?" I'm going to go to Tom first, just because I know Nitta loves this stuff.
Make him wait. Make him build his... You're giving him too much time to think about
it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go. It's a good question. I guess it's inherent with a lot of professions, and it's part of the job that I don't like in terms of I don't like the sense that it is a product we sell, I guess, and that thought process can be one that I'm sure a lot of people think about. So I think it probably comes down to your trust in the practitioner, if they've been recommended, and just your feel about if what they've said around why you need it. So it needs to be a very plausible rationale for using it, and explained well, and explained to the point where you understand the rationale, and it's an option that you should be provided, not a rigid treatment pathway. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling like you were kind of rushed into it, and you weren't really given the time to consider it as an option, which it is, it's not. Very rarely it should be like you need an orthotic. You're not going to get better without it. It's often more about this may help. These are the pros and cons. These are the costs, and then the rationale around it, and then letting them make up their mind. So I think it comes down to trusting the practitioner, and if they've explained things well, I think you should be hopefully happy that it's not about money. It's about giving you the best possible treatment for what you're coming in with.
I think that you've answered that perfectly. I think the patient needs to understand the reasoning or the justification to it. And most times you're putting in orthosis in, let's just say this person listening to the show is a runner, because they probably are. There's usually a purpose to either reduce pain and enhance that person to handle more running, basically. But they should have been given usually alternative options. There's normally like a bit of a hierarchical approach. There might be like step one, we'll try this. It might be like a pain management strategy that's like a lower cost initially. And if we have success with that, you might be able to move in that direction. It could be something as simple as a shoe prescription first that you're trying to achieve the management plan first. And you might lay out all these options to the patient. And if they have a clear understanding what you're trying to achieve with it, and the orthosis is part of that plan, or could potentially be part of that plan, it's really up to, I guess, in this case, the consumer to decide whether they want to head down that pathway. But if they don't have a clear understanding of what the device is built for, and, if they don't understand the justification to it, I think that's a bit of a red flag. So I think that's sort of an example. Like if you walk out saying, just wait, I'm going down this line, but I'm not 100% sure why. I don't know what you're like, Tom, but every time I get a patient in that has a pair of orthosis, maybe from some 5 to 10 years ago, for example, I always ask, do you remember what they were prescribed for?
Always ask that question.
And I would say 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people would say, I can't, flat feet, or I can't quite remember it. I'm not quite sure. Now, so usually that person probably doesn't need them at that point in time, because whatever happened has resolved, if that makes sense. But then they start to associate maybe their issues might return without the device. And this is where things, aren't clear. Like there is no evidence suggests if you take that tool out, go back into normal activity, you actually get the problem again. So usually it's just a temporary modification. And we do that with shoes. You do that with shoes, Julian. We've already talked about that. We've talked about like shifting load with a knee, changing a shoe prescription. Like an orthosis arguably is just a customized tool or a non-customized tool. Sometimes the process is if you're going to get a $500 customization for a plantar heel pain, for example, we do look at some of the literature and suggest that sometimes a prefab device might be a good starting point and be as efficacious in treating heel pain. So, if those options are all laid out to you and the consumer picks one of those pathways, well, I think that's probably, that's when you're including the patient or the consumer into the decision-making process, which surely means they decide they understand why they're going through it. But if you don't get given an option or they don't understand the process, I think that's a red flag.
It is well explained. I think trust is the big thing here, and understanding. But a lot of the time, those more well-known practitioners, from what I've seen, they get recommended a lot, but that's because they're bigger names and they're quite successful. Well, I won't say successful, but like you've both seen examples of sort of more well-known practitioners making a real business off selling orthotics when they weren't needed.
Yep.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating.
And I mean, we had an example a couple of weeks ago where someone came in with pain for 5 to 6 days, who was suggested to go down the line of orthosis from day one. And, she got a second opinion. She popped in the clinic and it was like 2 weeks after she couldn't get in to see me straight away, but her problem was gone. So, so she didn't require them as a tool because the problem was gone after an extra 2 weeks. So, and so in that case, it wasn't required, was it? So, rushing into a process, if you've had pain for a short period of time, it's probably not going to be the pathway. It's different, maybe a different story if you've had pain for, ongoing for months and years, for example. Sometimes the intervention becomes a bit more, a bit more extreme. And once again, it's still individual and it does rely on trust, and it also relies on maybe the patient being involved in the process.
I think most people listening, if you're going to see a podiatrist and they're recommending a custom orthotic, if they haven't already discussed the pros and cons of a prefabricated versus a custom, you should probably ask. You should ask, what about a prefabricated or an off-the-shelf orthotic? Would that be of any help instead of going to the full custom? Because like Mike alluded to, from an evidence-based standpoint, for many conditions, a prefabricated has been shown to be as effective as a custom. So it's definitely worth like asking if it's not brought up. But I would say most good practitioners will lay out the options, including the pros and cons of a pre-made versus a custom. There are obviously some people where I'd be suggesting a custom might be more beneficial for a particular reason, but it doesn't mean that a pre-made one will be ineffective. It just may not be quite as effective for that person, but they need to be given the options and the costs and make up your mind.
And probably a more specific example to that is like in the past 3 or 4 years, because you've had such a good option of having stiff rocker-soled shoes now, we've been able to not prescribe orthosis for like midfoot arthritis and big toe arthritis, these things that are relatively chronic, and seen shoe attributes being able to rejuvenate running careers. And now we're sort of starting to see those shoes disappear a little bit again. Like, well, not, the shoes still exist, but they're becoming, the attributes changing. It's softer, it's more compliant. And, we see, papers have discussed the use of orthosis to reduce pain in midfoot arthritis and big toe arthritis. And there is data suggesting it can be efficacious. There's also data suggesting it's not. It's got an individual response. But shoe retailers were making us look good for a really good period of time because the shoe itself had the attribute. It was the podiatrist to know that. So if you're a patient, asking if there's not just a prefab option, but maybe asking if there's a shoe attribute that I could start with as well. And I'd hate to see going down the line of building more orthosis for midfoot and big toe away because shoes start to become too soft and smushy again. So I think even footwear companies listening to this podcast should realize there's a market for patients like that, and it may not be a big enough market to really have too many shoes in the area, but it's probably a big enough market now to realize that we have enough evidence suggesting those shoes might be getting people back into activity as well. So I hope that market stays strong as well, and patients being understanding that there are options just purely built on shoes that might be able to treat the problem as well. So yeah, sometimes maybe some consumers go in there assuming they need to have it, and then podiatrist gets very used to just giving them out because the expectation's there. That falls on. You have someone who's a bit more educated go in there and say, oh, actually, I want a prefab for my heel pain. The podiatrist should be aware of that and realize that you should be able to educate the patient and give them an alternative option. So I hope that answers Simon's question.
It does. Definitely. Like that was a good answer. And that's a good way to finish up today, I reckon.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. So what do you guys got planned for the next few weeks? Not much. You're not going to stall, are you now, Julian? I'm
going to work on Easter Monday. It's a public holiday. It's too expensive to have too many staff. So I can't get there. I can't go see you. But if you want to come through Geelong, I'll see you.
How's the new shop going?
It's busy. It's bigger.
Yeah, that's good.
There's more space. We can do more. Have more SKUs, we can do more fittings at once. It's a little more relaxed. I've got more memorabilia, we got more apparel. So I'm
loving that Vaporfly display.
Yeah.
What's the commute like? Is the commute much closer or?
Yeah, way closer. So it's 40 minutes, 35 on a good day, which is different to 95. And I'm like, I've never really left the Geelong running community. Like even I used to come down and run with the group when I was in Ballarat a lot and stay in touch there. So it still feels like I know everybody, same old faces. A lot of new people to Geelong. It's a really growing area. So it's a bigger fit. Actually, one of the differences in Ballarat, it's a lot like the customers, it was very much a more small town vibe. So a customer would come in and you would get a real personal interaction. In Geelong, we have a lot more like transient sort of customers who come in who aren't interested in chatting and just want to look at the shoes on the wall. So that's different. That's harder for me to get my head around because I want to talk to everyone who comes in and not everyone wants to talk back. And even like just because Ballarat had such a great reputation for like the staff and everything, we're working on bringing that into the Geelong store where like there's just full trust involved in the staff. So like they can just hand the keys over to their shoes and go, you guys go to work on my fitting. So
Nice.
we're breaking down a few things that have sort of, changing the culture.
That's good. And Tom, how's working with footy boots and the Swans?
Yeah, that's good. It's a steep learning curve. I went to my first AFL game. I watched the opener with the Giants.
Saw that on Instagram. Yeah, got up and about.
You didn't get up for you didn't go to Buddy's 1,000th goal or what?
No, I missed it. No, yeah, that was a shame.
That was a spreader event, wasn't it?
yeah, pretty much.
Sydney.
Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been good. I'm getting used to playing with boots a bit more and
that's fun.
Learning about the game. It's good.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, guys, that was fun.
Mate?
Nothing. Just work. Clarky's going to be leaving me for about maybe 2 months or so to go overseas and just the world champs and com games. So I'll be pushing a few more hours out at work more than likely. But otherwise, the girls are good. They're actually sick today. Actually, they're home, and you know what sickness is like in 2022. They can't even leave the house until they get their confirmation that they haven't got COVID.
They can in Sydney, mate. They can in Sydney.
Yeah, they can in Sydney. That's true. Yeah. Yep. All right, guys. You guys have a good week. All right.
All right. See you
Cheers.
later.
See you later.